Students, when you talk of emerging issues or current developments in auditing, what kind of things are we looking at here? Right? We are told here, like almost in every industry in the world, accounting and auditing is going through a period of rapid change. The auditor now must put more emphasis on understanding business processes, automation. We must really automate what we are doing, and of course, also know the automations being carried out by our clients, right? We must be on top of the game in terms of automation, like understanding all, if possible, the accounting systems that are being applied outside there. Because remember, as an auditor, you will keep on really moving between clients. This client is using SAP, another client is using, for example, ERP, or rather the Sage, Tally, etc. So automation, including artificial intelligence, the robots, right? Data analytics, and the need for a digital and driven mindset. So this changing industry requires a new kind of tech-savvy, forward-thinking professional who can embrace change. So what are the top trends to watch out for this year and in the future? The first one is the audit of cryptocurrencies, like the Bitcoin. Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies have gone mainstream. Billion-dollar companies like Tesla now have huge amounts of Bitcoins on their balance sheets. In March this year, Joe Biden signed a landmark order to help the USA develop and use digital assets in a responsible manner. It is the first time the world's largest economy has made a move to regulate the cryptocurrency market, which is currently worth almost $2 trillion. In Kenya here locally, CBK has something on digital currency in the offering. You guys must have read this severally, right? So the move will help provide clarity to investors, which is okay once we have now regulation from government, which is okay, holders, and regulators concerned with auditing, accounting, and taxation of these digital assets. However, there is still much uncertainty around which rules to follow. And even with cryptos qualify as assets, securities, or money, it's going to take some time for everybody to get on the same page, Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want us to discuss something a little bit about these cryptocurrencies. You as an auditor, what do you think will be the main challenges that you will face if, for example, you have a balance sheet that has got some cryptocurrency, right? Remember, they are treated as what here? As assets, intangible assets. So you go, in this case here, like now to Tesla, you realize that there is an asset called Bitcoin, which has a value of, say, $3 million US. What do you think will be the major challenges that you will face when you are auditing this balance sheet with some cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin? Can somebody in this case here chip in and discuss? I can see several. As an auditor, I really get worried. With Bitcoin as an asset, what are the major challenges, ladies and gentlemen, that you are able to foresee as an accountant, as an auditor, while in this case here auditing this Bitcoin? It's a new area, quite uncertain, which has got a lot of criminals involved. So I'm waiting, please. Here we have to talk because, as I told you, this is quite a gray area. Very good. There are no guiding standards. There are no guiding standards. You know, like when you're auditing a standard, for example, somebody gives you something like a consolidation. So consolidation, as an accountant, I'll be able, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here to say consolidation, we have IFRS 3. We have got IFRS 10. So I have standards that I can read and understand and be able to tell, really, this is how these guys were able to come up with what here, these values. So for Bitcoins, there are no standards. There are no standards regarding what here. There are no standards regarding IFRS, no standards regarding ISA, International Standards on Auditing. I love this. Right. So great. I can see, ladies and gentlemen, very good answers here. Valuation issues. I like what Mary is saying there. These are big challenges as an auditor, and I hope you guys are writing your small notes there, especially on these points coming from students. The challenges there, valuation. How, in this case here, have these particular cryptocurrency assets been valued? Like some time back, ladies and gentlemen, one Bitcoin was going for about 6 million. Now the Bitcoin has lost value. Is there somebody who is really conversant with this Bitcoin? How much does a Bitcoin currently in terms of Kenya shilling cost? It has lost value. People who have invested in Bitcoins are crying premium tears outside here, right? So we have a challenge in terms of what here these digital assets are very volatile. They're very volatile, right? So today it could be 6 million. Another day it could be what here? It could be like you go there, you're told in this case even the system cannot open. So they are valued as zero, right? Right, right. Now we have Rebecca raising something, ladies and gentlemen, here with inherent risks. This is a very gray area. It's a dangerous area, an area in this case here that I've told you is prone to all in this case here, guys who would want to do money laundering and ABCD, thieves are in this industry. So the risks are very high. You go there, you get somebody who has done a very good website, you admire their website, oh, you see that this is heaven I'm being promised. After some time, after they have taken your money, right, then they'll be able to do what here to disable that website. So the risks there are very high. The risks there are very high. Now look at what Joseph is telling us here, that evidence, proper evidence that I can use, ladies and gentlemen, here to really support my opinion is lacking. So evidence to support such a balance is not regulated, is even lacking totally, right? We have what Lily is saying here, verification of the existence of these currencies. How do you get to verify? Will you be able to use in this case here, for example, these assertions? If you remember the assertions, the ACCA cover. The ACCA cover, like when we talk of rights and obligations, you know, and rights and obligations, you will say this is an asset. I have land, then I have a title deed. I've got something in this case, ladies and gentlemen, to support the ownership of these particular assets. But now for these digital currencies, really, what are you given to be able to show that for sure this thing belongs to this person? People will tell you that we are mining Bitcoins. Mining what? And you're not going to give me any certification. Right? Great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you talk of audit of cryptocurrencies, you must always be, you know, it's surrounded by a lot of secrecy, So even the audit trail, being able to follow that this person has bought this using these Bitcoins, the movement, you'll be able not be able, ladies and gentlemen, here to really follow the audit trail very well. Audit trail. The transactions, the movements of transactions from one point to the other, you can't follow. You know, if it's cash, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be able to say that, this company bought this particular house and the cash was moved from here to, like that, to this particular seller. So I'm able to audit the trail. I'm able to audit that movement. But for Bitcoin, it will be very hard. Someone will come and tell you that they mined. They mined now what? Right? The other problem with these cryptocurrencies, ladies and gentlemen, is lack of knowledge within the company and, of course, even in the auditing firm. Lack of knowledge. So you go finally be tossed and told that go to the audit committee. But chances are even the audit committee members don't understand these cryptocurrencies very well. So even when you tell them to write a representation letter to you, I mean, how do they commit themselves over these things, right? Even tell them to write a representation letter to you in form of just valuation. They'll even not accept. right? So there are knowledge gaps in terms of what here, the cryptocurrencies. I believe that, ladies and gentlemen, we've been able to take not high level notes, but some understanding. When they bring a question on cryptocurrencies, you should be able to do what here? You should be able to at least write something. It can't really slip your way 100%. Now, we have this area is an emerging issue. Auditing standards for SMEs. Have you guys ever heard of IFRS for SMEs? It's an emerging area. It's becoming a big area. Have you guys ever heard of IFRS for SMEs? That you've got IFRS for listed companies and IFRS for SMEs. Is there anybody who has ever heard of these? Please talk to me in the morning. Please talk to me in the morning. Please talk to me in the morning. Lily is very honest. And someone no, go on yes. IFRS for SMEs. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, SMEs, Victor has never heard about this. So IFRS for SMEs. SMEs, we know that adopting the entire IFRS for a small company may be very challenging and unnecessary. So the Standards Board is in the process of developing a full package of IFRS for SMEs like RCMs and SME. A full package for what here? SMEs. Right? Already they are there, but still it's not very clear. Right? Not very clear. The same case with auditing. They would want us to have standards of auditing for small companies, It's an emerging area. Now, remember at the moment, these small companies are not required to, for example, do segmental reporting to simplify their work. These SMEs at the moment, they're not supposed to do, in this case here, segmental reporting. They do not have anything to do with, for example, IFRS 2, that's share-based payments. And really, even EPS, they're not required to go through EPS computations, right? So in this case here, this thing is emerging that we need these SMEs, smaller companies to have their standards over their own. Quite a good area. But now there are very many gray areas there. First of all, what is the threshold? I mean, don't you see there will be so many companies that will be running away from complying with IFRS simply by saying that, hey, as we are small, as we are dwarfs. Right? And then, of course, the moment we open this Pandora's box and they say that there are IFRSs for small companies, what will happen in the future? Small companies will even want to have these IFRSs squeezed until we get zero, right? So when you talk of auditing standards for less complex entities make crucial contributions to local and global economies. In fact, they account for the majority of entities worldwide. These are businesses and organizations with small concentration of managers and owners. Other characteristics of these businesses include uncomplicated transactions, simple record keeping, and a few internal controls. To help these SMEs entities thrive, regulators and other stakeholders are proposing new measures that will streamline and simplify accounting and auditing processes for these companies. The objective is to develop a separate standard for these less complex entities, what you're calling small entities, addressing issues and the challenges related to complexity and scalability. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as an auditor, this is quite scary. Why? You know, these standards are supposed to ensure what we call uniformity. When you start, ladies and gentlemen, telling us that we have standards for small companies, standards for big companies, then even that concept of now financial statements being produced in a uniform way, a way that we can be able to compare different companies. In this case here, that advantage will be eroded, right? And then, of course, when we have these standards changing every time, changing often, this, of course, introduces knowledge gaps. For what? Yeah, knowledge gaps for auditors. When we have these standards changing, ladies and gentlemen, what about the opening balances that will be brought forward in, for example, the assets in the PPE, in the balance sheet, opening balances? Those balances will have an issue. People will come and tell you that last year we had this standard which was being applied. Now, because we are exempted from this standard this year, we decided to remove this particular balance there, this particular item from the balance sheet. So we'll have a problem to do with what here? The company policies changing, the accounting policies of a company changing. And of course, once again, we have the policies of this company changing often, right? This was an asset last year. This year, we don't have it because we feel that we are a small company. Then as an auditor, I will lose the audit trail, right? As an auditor, I lose the audit trail. When things change often, automatically when things change often, ladies and gentlemen, that is not very good for an auditor. That, of course, in this case here will be, we are being set up not to do a very good audit, not to do a thorough audit, right? So when they talk of, ladies and gentlemen, anytime they talk of standards are changing, what is the plight of an auditor here? Remember, when standards are changing, it means that there will be quite a lot of substantive tests to be done, even in subsequent years. Substantive tests have to be done. You have to do a lot of calculations, right? You must keep on, in this case here, checking, of course, internal controls regarding the changes. This standard changed. When it changed, what was, in this case here, what changes do you make? Are you sure, do you make to this one? Are you so sure that you captured everything correct? So this brings complications. And of course, the fact that now firms will not be compared at the same level, there is a problem, right? Now, can somebody in this case here talk to us regarding this impact of COVID-19 on auditing? COVID-19, it's an emerging area. 2019, COVID is with us. Auditors cannot continue with their work in the very usual way. So is there somebody who is able to give us very few points about the impact of the COVID-19 on auditing? Impact of COVID-19 on auditing. Is there somebody who can give me these few points? Or do you think auditing industry is still operating in the same way? No. So many things are changing, as you guys right. COVID-19 has brought in things like remote auditing and remote management, right? So we don't have to visit client premises, all right? We are auditing them from our homes. And because we are auditing from our homes, that physical interactions, where we're able to see, for example, the body language, that thing in this case here is fully eroded now, right? You know, at times somebody who is cheating, you'll be able, when you cross-examine them at close range, you'll be able to say, hey, this person is cheating me, right? So the physical interaction is never there, right? COVID-19 now has required auditors here to be very good in software, something that most auditors were not really looking at. We must be very good in software now. Software of teleconferencing. We must be good in Zoom, recording, collecting evidence online, right? COVID-19, ladies and gentlemen, has now forced very many of these big fours to think of localization of their staff. That we have our own auditors in the UK who are only auditing UK companies. They can't travel because traveling now with COVID-19 is quite an exhaustive exercise. You'd be so much exhausted here. These guys are pricking their nose here to do tests in this country. It is so. Movement of auditing personnel has become a challenge, has become a challenge. So as I wait for your points, I can see it's only 5 who have given me points. We are trying to think here. It's 5 out of 60 people who are giving me points. No, I cannot accept that. I can't accept that. I cannot accept that. Impact of COVID-19 on auditing. So before I read yours, I can see a very good point here on, one of the procedures of auditing is observation. Observation, I'm required in this case here to go to the client premises, and if it's, for example, stock take, I should be able to see those procedures. So you're telling me not to travel. You're telling me in this case here not to move around. But now we even have situations where the client goes with a camera. You see, how do you believe? I mean, that's wrong for observation. Observation, I need to see these things on myself, right? So I can see now charts are increasing. Let me try reading them. Thank you very much, Naomi. The paperwork is very much reduced. Everything now is going online. So the paperwork is very much reduced. So is this really very good for the auditor? What auditors are now doing in terms of the working papers, if you send them something online, they are printing, because it's always important for you to keep what here a file. Even if you have files on these computers can be corrupted. This is another impact of COVID-19, right? The concept of viruses, right? We must know, ladies and gentlemen, how to do backups of our documentations, right? Sophie Warui tells us, no proper verification of all documents, since not all documents can be sent as soft copies. Very good, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, trust you me. There's some companies, if you get to see their bank statements, I mean, they're crazy. Having all their bank statements, in this case, sent to you, for example, through email, right, becomes very, very complicated, very, very complicated. Yeah, you can see in this case, this is quite a very big impact, that we don't have physical meetings. We don't have physical meetings. We don't have physical meetings. So in this case here, opening and closing meetings are now being done here through Zoom, through Teams, etc. No physical meetings. Is this very good? Of course, as we get along, now we are getting used to the online meetings, but physical meetings, ladies and gentlemen, were very nice, very nice. No proper, okay, that I've seen. No audit trail, I love this. Again, the movements, right? The movements of these transactions here. I would want to see them. I would want to see the vouchers. I would want, so when you talk about you sending me all these things, I mean, I'll not be able to really have my trail. The tracing of documentation is what we call the audit trail, the tracing. That tracing will not be as good, right? So difficulties in collection, verification, and authentication of the evidence. This is very true, Joseph. Yeah, how you collect how you collect this evidence has really, really changed, right? It's quite difficult now. Takes less time, although opinion is complicated, compromised. This is debatable, Mary. You'll be surprised. At times online may be very, very time consuming. Maybe very, very time consuming. Because there'll be a lot of back and forth, This voucher, is it? There'll be a lot of back and forth. Audit procedures such as inspection, I like this, verification of the existence of some items are not possible. Hence, limitation of collection of enough evidence for auditor's judgment. Inspection, verification of the existence of some items are not possible. Hence, limitation of collection of enough evidence for the auditor's judgment. Look at what Mr. Alfred is telling me. This Alfred guy is a good guy. Auditors had to upgrade their systems to audit remote work and give their opinion on its viability to the management in their management letter. Most audit firms had to channel more resources to their staff training in readiness for the new online audit. There must be a lot of training to the audit staff, right? Remember, most people don't like online. So most of these, especially big four companies, spent huge resources training their staff to understand how to conduct online audits. And we are told in this case that they had to upgrade their systems, right? We had so many companies that never had caseware as a software, audit software. But right now, even the small firms here now are forced to take caseware because of the integration between caseware and the client system. So that when we open our caseware, we shall also be able to enter into our client's system and pull information here and be able to, do our own calculations, etc. So we had to upgrade our systems. We have very good points here. I wish you had time. Creation of new risks. I love this in terms of reliability of evidence obtained. Ladies and gentlemen, this is online. There are new risks, not even in terms of evidence alone. There are new risks. There are new risks in this case that are coming up. Remember these systems, online systems, the risk is very high, inherent risk. Like right now, we are having an online meeting. What if I have a power outage, right? That auditors were so much used to traveling. They were getting the per diems. So auditors now are looking at their cash, their paychecks in this case are reducing, which leads to demotivation. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget also that COVID-19 confined most of us to our homes, right? Missing that work environment. Being home, before you get used to working from home 100% with the kids all over, there'll be some trauma, right? Kind of depression was setting in to most of these guys. People are gaining weight, right? So even there was a behavioral change in terms of how we are working even right now. I like what I'm seeing with Viola. Understanding the scope of the audit when you are operating, ladies and gentlemen, from online really is not very, very easy. It's not very easy. Understanding the scope of the audit is not very, very easy here, right? When you're doing these things remotely, virtually, scope definition is not very easy. Scope definition is normally done very well when we are doing our initial meetings, right? And some of these scope definitions could even be quite unofficial when you are having, for example, a chat with the CFOs, right? Even outside those meetings, you'll be able to understand, hey, here we have got an expectations gap. These people expect me to do this, and even how you define the responsibilities. If it's a physical meeting, ladies and gentlemen, it's quite different because there will be so many things that you'll be able to talk about, as opposed to online is very formal. We're having a 3-hour meeting. After that, we start, in this case here, auditing, right? I can see in this case here that Lily is saying that Tata Chai, right? So we have patients who are occasionally saying there is an advantage to this, reduced cost in terms of facilitating audits, paying for transport and accommodation, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, let us read this very fast. We are told here impact of COVID on auditing. COVID-19 outbreak raised unprecedented challenges for companies, accounting professionals, and auditors. Travel restrictions are likely to remain in place throughout 2022, and in the future, there are still countries, where you cannot enter easily. As such, auditors who travel overseas for work must stay up to date on laws and regulations, including testing, quarantine requirements, and potential penalties or fines for any breaches. Moreover, staff and management shortages because of illness, we forgot this all of us, because of illness or travel restrictions could limit a company's ability to provide supporting evidence during an audit. Often, auditors need to have detailed discussions with management to obtain information they require for preparing financial statements. The ability to gather and provide evidence may have been affected in other ways too. Bank closures, may result in an inability to confirm cash balances. This is when we had the COVID now at its peak, where banks were being closed, right? And the issues with suppliers and supply chains may lead to delays or gaps in the reporting and audit process. Great. So I can see two charts here. It's difficult to undertake risk assessment. Confidentiality can be compromised and third party can access information. I love this. This is a very good point. Very good point. Very good point. Very good point. Right? So I don't know whether this is truthful, that at times, men, we don't really bother too much, but at times in this case here, our wives would want to know most of the things you are doing. But at times they can come and see some things we are doing in our work computers and they wonder, right? Even children, right? They can easily pop and say, Daddy, what are you doing here? Especially when you have left your machine open, they can see things that they are not supposed to see, right? So I like David Cachero's point. Confidentiality is really compromised and third party can access information. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that one we have really exhausted. You'll have something to write. Now, is there anybody who has ever heard of cyber insurance related to cybercrime, cyber attacks? Cyber insurance. Is there anybody who has ever heard of cyber insurance? Cyber insurance. Yes. Yes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember the current criminals are no longer going to banks with guns. No. These guys have decided to take the game a little bit higher. Now, what they are doing is to attack your ICT infrastructure. They attack your ICT infrastructure. Like banks, I'm told like most of these big people you're seeing outside here who are involved in this wash business, they're stealing from banks like every other day by intercepting communications between banking personnel, right? So they'll come, in this case here, look at how your infrastructure is, and then they'll be able, if it's a bank, to get straight away into the core banking system. I hope you guys know what core banking system is, where you store, for example, the employee, not employees, but your customers DB, customers database. You have like Joshua Aura has an outstanding bank of 5 million, bank balance of 5 million. Somebody in this case here has an overdraft. This person has this loan. So these guys can easily get into this particular database from outside there. They're attacking from outside there. And once, for example, they get into the company's core banking database, what they can easily do is to get there and then they wipe off, for example, all customers who have loans with the bank. They throw malware there. They throw viruses there. And then automatically, you wake up in the morning, you're not able to tell who owes you, like circles. Most of these circles have been really hit because circles are not very good for, they're not known for backing up. They don't believe in spending in systems. So you wake up like this, ladies and gentlemen, you realize that, hey, this has been happening. We don't have these loan balances. So what do we do? In the process, ladies and gentlemen, chances are you may end up losing a lot of money because of what your cyber criminals. They operate from cyber cafes, they operate online. They're not coming to the physical premises. Like remember, this lady of Stanbic, if you remember this lady of Stanbic, who was awarded a lot of money, Stanbic Bank, a lot of money because of unfair dismissal. What happened with that lady? We remember the story. This lady, a customer came, gave the lady about 100,000 Kenya shillings. So the lady banked that 100,000 Kenya shillings. And then instead of, that's what the bank was alleging, instead of, ladies and gentlemen, the lady in this case here, putting 100,000, she did insert there 10 million. That's according to what the bank was alleging in the courts. Now, and then we had somebody, so this is a client who had, not like how you can give me money, go and deposit this money in my account. So I go to Stanbic, like here in Kenyatta Avenue, I put 100,000 there. And then now people say that the bank said that it's this lady who added the zeros to make it 10 million. Now, the real owner of this account is in Kwale. So the real owner of this account goes there and withdraws most of that money in a week. That 10 million is not there. So the lady is sacked automatically. The case goes to court. Then later on, they realize that it is somebody who went. It wasn't even about this lady. Somebody who went to the systems and was able to add those zeros. It was a cyber crime. It was a cyber attack. And in the process, now the bank loses what here? The bank loses all that money, right? A lot of money, of over 9 million. Remember, this guy only deposited 100,000. So the bank loses that money. The bank is also losing the court case here. And of course, they're going to be given a lot of what here? Fines, right? They have to compensate this lady. So it will be very important, ladies and gentlemen, in light of this, to have a system where you transfer risks. You transfer risks to a third party, to an insurance company. Have a cyber insurance. So cyber insurance basically will be this third party, like an insurance company, who will be coming in to compensate you when you experience what we call cyber attacks. Cyber attacks. Yeah. Great. So you talk of cyber insurance. With cyber insurance, cyber attacks becoming more involved and multifaceted, and they're keeping on changing every time. I'm telling you, companies are losing. They're losing big time. Cybercrime insurance is something that every business which uses technology to store information or conduct business practices should consider. Right? Cyber insurance, you should consider this. Cyber extortion most often involves a criminal making a ransom demand from businesses using the threat of malicious activity on business systems or what here information. Ladies and gentlemen, for us in our case, if we are auditing a very sensitive institution like a bank, when it comes to these cyber attacks, as an auditor, first of all, I would want to know the policies that are in place to prevent the bank from getting these cyber attacks. I would want to really see, for example, their firewall, right? Do they have, in this case here, what we call ethical hackers? Which company are they working with in terms of their ICT infrastructure, maintenance of their ICT infrastructure, right? So as an auditor, I would want really to be so sure about the company, the credibility of this company, right? How often do they update their ICT systems? How often do they do maintenance of their ICT systems? I would want a very detailed explanation from the management regarding this, because remember, cyber attack has got every association with going concern, cyber attack. So as an auditor, I need to be so sure that really everything is all right. So I'll have to look for that evidence to showcase that for sure this infrastructure is okay. But remember again, there is a risk. It can never be okay 100%. No, right? Right? It can never be okay 100%. We expect these thieves always to try to be ahead of us, but we must also strive in this case here to ensure that we are ahead of them, right? I can see some chart here. Just let me see the chart here. Our insurer recommended a cyber, you see this, a cyber risk insurance. This covers for loss relating to breach of ICT systems through introduction to malware, network interruption, cyber extortion, and ransomware. Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. So somebody, we were trying to explain something to do with cyber attacks and insurance. As an auditor, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do just to be comfortable and be able to say that for sure, this company's ICT systems are strong. Could you kindly tell me something about there? As I told you, this is very unstructured. It depends on how you would want really to reason. So as an auditor, what are you going to do? What are some of the audit procedures that you need to undertake just to be very sure that things are all right? Just to be very sure that things are all right. Audit procedures on cyber attacks and insurance. Remember I told you whenever they talk over some of these things like audit procedures, always think of R, A, E, O, U, always. Always think of R, A, E, O, U, always. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Passwords management. This is a big thing. This is a big thing. I would want actually this on passwords, I would want a representation for management. I would want to know how passwords are being managed in this organization. How often do you ask, for example, your employees to change passwords? Do you have a policy on that? And the passwords need to be very strong, such that, for example, when I'm trying, like my workplace, when I try to put in my password to my computer, the password must be connected to my phone. The user rights, yes. The user rights, Testing the firewalls, I love this. This must be a student who knows some ICT. Testing firewalls, if they are working. How strong are these firewalls? Those walls, in this case, are surrounding my core banking system. Are they on fire? Are they strong such that if there is a cyber person trying to attack, they'll even ban him? So in that case, I will need to use experts who will be able to do what here will be able to come and even test the firewalls penetration, right? Yeah, regularly testing of security controls. How secure are we? We must keep on, in this case, as auditors, to even working with ICT, other ICT people, to try to break into this security system of this ICT. They are called ethical hackers. They're very good. It's a good cause. Ethical hackers, good hackers. You get into collaboration with them. Let them come and look at these securities. How are they? Are they strong? Please don't forget about inquiries. Like when you are, anytime you're looking at the systems, you must, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, go ahead and check for what here. You must go ahead and talk to the vendors of the software. Look at how reliable they are. For example, whenever they are called on maintenance issues, how fast do they respond? Are they reputable? Are they reputable? Right? I'll be able to use what we call test data. I hope you understand what test data is. So in this case here, I come with my own data and try even to put, for example, if it's just a simple thing, like what the system does, try in this case here to check limits, right? If, for example, you tell me like StanChart, of course, like right now we have a limit of, is it 80 or 100,000, can we withdraw from the ATM, right? I would want to test that myself, right? Yeah, as an auditor, I would want in this case here to be given the ICT policies of the company, go through them, etc. So the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, you're supposed to know is that those cyber attacks are there. And when they come in very heavy, very heavy. You're going to lose even the entire organization. So, and as such, you must, in this case here, have an insurer. So for insurance as an audit procedure, I would want to know who has provided this insurance. Is the firm credible? Is it known for honoring claims when they come up? I would want to know the sum insured, and this sum insured, is it really material or just they're putting it there just for the sake? Is it material? Is it material? You know, somebody will tell you that you have taken a cyber insurance cover of $1 million Kenya shillings. Now, for a big bank, what is $1 million Kenya shillings really? That's a joke. I'll be able to advise them, tell them, no, this is not proper. You guys are still exposed. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, the other procedure that I would be interested in when it comes to cyber security and, of course, crime, I would want to see the level of preparedness of the bank, for example, in terms of training their staff. Because how does this cyber attack operate? It operates through simple things. Yani mtu anaona tu kitu kwa online, right? And a click. Once you click like this, automatically those fraudsters are able to get access. Are able to get access to all confidential information about yourself, right? Right? Very important. So you talk about preparedness, security. We must be looking at training and basically overall awareness of the staff to this possible what here? Cyber attacks. Great. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mary Achoki, and mention those RAO for David. Yes. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as an auditor, I would want to know what backup procedures are there, right? What backup procedures are there? This is very important. Cyber attacks. There is so much you can talk about here. But again, what I would want you to be doing as auditors, always try to use the words I would, I will do this and this, I'll do this, and you must own up the case. You must own up the case. So Mary, I'm waiting for you to finish that RAO. Mr. David. Great. Thank you very much. Great. Now, somebody may ask, why do we have people going into the cyber crime? There's a lot of gain. People make a lot of money out of that kind of theft. It's quite a highly unregulated area. Even our DCI here, they were coming up with this law of cybercrime just the other day. With our parliament, of course, DCI are those who are in charge of implementing. Right? It's a gray area. You're still using cybercrime, nobody will be able to come following you up. And of course, like now when they corrupt your data, how do they benefit? They'll come and tell you, if you want us to return, for example, this loan register to you, give us 10 million Kenya shillings. Great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall take a 5 minutes break. Try to stretch. When we come back, we should be able to continue with these emerging issues, the current trends. 5 minutes break, please. Continue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of really emerging issues, I would want us to look at this concept of globalization. Globalization, remember, right now the world is becoming a global village. So we have, for example, a Swedish organization operating in 140 countries, right? Of course, this will pose quite a big challenge to accountants. Most of these countries have their own local standards, which they would want to adapt to. Companies would do that. So you'll get a situation where, for example, like EABL, when they are in Tanzania, they could be preparing 2 sets of financial statements. One set, in this case here, for IFRS, and another set, for example, for the Tanzania local standards, depending on whether TZ has been able to adopt IFRS or not. So that's a big challenge. So as an auditor, when I go there, ladies and gentlemen, to audit this kind of an entity that has prepared their financial statements on the basis of 2 types of standards, that becomes very complicated. It means automatically that as an auditor, I must be versatile with both standards. That calls for what here, taking to those companies resources, employees who are highly skilled. It means more costs for me. Globalization automatically, again, in terms of knowledge gaps, will always bring issues to do with what here, issues to do with the language barriers. Right? Remember, a global outfit is a multinational outfit, a company that is operating in many countries. So you go, for example, to a country like France or even China. Those guys don't believe in knowing what here English. They always deem that their language is superior, right? So then if you are a Kenyan company, auditing company, that has a client which happens to be having a branch in China, how will you be able to gather your evidence there, right? That, of course, calls for you guys working with language experts because of what are the language barriers. Anytime we talk about globalization, there must be a problem with what here? With foreign currency. There must be a problem with foreign currency. There must be a problem with what here? With foreign currencies, right? So there will be issues to do with what with translations. So as an auditor, I must be conversant with that particular problem, right? How do these companies, in this case, do translations? So in terms of my audit procedures, ladies and gentlemen, for example, when I'm called to look at, for example, a foreign exchange reserve, there'll be a foreign exchange reserve there. How good am I? Will I be able to inspect all documents regarding this foreign exchange reserve figure? How was it computed? How was it arrived at? So anytime they bring any question, ladies and gentlemen, to do with globalization, those are the challenges you're supposed to be thinking about. Foreign exchange, language barrier, right? Right? We have restrictions over traveling as an auditor, right? Globalization and, of course, COVID-19, right, is an issue. Globalization and COVID-19 is an issue because you will not be able to move the way you really would have wished to move to collect evidence. Are there any other things that you guys are able to talk about regarding globalization, becoming a global entity, auditing of a global entity, challenges of auditing a global entity? I know you must be having very many points, actually more than I have. Challenges of auditing a global entity, an entity which is what here, a multinational. Most of these multinational companies, ladies and gentlemen, could be in tax havens. You may even yourself as an auditor put yourself into problems with some other governments. Reputational risks. Some of these companies that are really growing into some areas may not be very clean as pertains to money laundering matters, globalization. Globalization, right? Complex structure, I love this. Differences in policies, yes, like IFRS versus their local adaptations. Limitation of scope, I would really want to know how this is coming. Christine could be a good one. I love the complex structure. You have, for example, a company which has got now what? A management office in Venezuela. Auditing that company is not easy. That company is not easy. Right? You guys, you don't have points here. Challenges to be experienced while auditing a global, a multinational. Very good. Machari must have traveled. Racism. Racism is there. This is a point that I would take. Very, very nice. Racism, yes. Racism. You're outside there, you're trying to tell a Mzungu to give you some files and explanations. Yeah, hostile people say with the racism, yes. I'm telling you, there are countries, for example, you go even to our local neighbor here, near neighbor here, Tanzania, they hate Kenyans. Who will give you information? They hate Kenyans. You will not be able to get information. You can't collect evidence. Perhaps that is what this lady was talking about, limitation of scope. Your scope will really be limited because you, turn around time to confirm audit requests, yes. Thank you very much, Macharia. Culture shock. Culture shock, like I was given some assignment in Burundi, right? My farmer taken me there to do something there. And then I realized that these guys, they'll come to work at around 9 a.m. And by 12, they want to go out for lunch. By 12, they want to go out for lunch, 12 p.m. And then they'll come back at 2 p.m. And between 12 and 2, they must grab a beer. So it's a culture, getting good. You know, Kenya, by the way, you have never traveled, you may not be able to really appreciate what Kenyans do. Kenyans are hardworking people. Like now what you are doing here, studying at this time, there are very few countries that you can get people doing what we are doing here, right? So we have different accounting standards. Obadia Mulinge, different accounting standards, yes. Yes, you know, some countries, you know, like Kenya, here, we used to have what we called Kenya accounting standards. And then we have IFRS. We have countries, in this case here, for example, like Sweden, we have the Swedish gaps. Even America does not use IFRS. So when you have a multinational company, there'll always be a difference. There'll always be what here, that complication, because some of the subsidiaries will be reporting in their local standards, right? Lily says same case to Tanzania. They arrive in office at 9 a.m. and close by 3 p.m. Yes. This kind of noise we keep on making about Kenya, once we stop corruption, Kenya is a heaven of a country, I can assure you. It's a heaven of a country. It's a great country. I love Kenya. Transfer over and foreign habits. Now you have to really explain that. So I think we've captured most of the things here. The thing that I expected you maybe to raise is this concept of transfer pricing. Transfer pricing is a big thing with globalization. Transfer pricing is a big thing with globalization. Transfer pricing. How does it operate? Remember, transfer pricing is where we try to shift profits to tax havens. Countries whose taxes are almost zero would want most of our profits to go there. So normally what these companies do, multinational companies, they'll come up with fake transactions and sell to countries, for example, branches which are in a country like Kenya with heavy taxes. So they say that we sold goods to Kenya. And then Kenya, that country, branch raises an invoice. Kenya pays. So it's a way of moving that money to a tax haven. And then those guys will go to enjoy that money in those countries like Panama, etc. So transfer pricing is another area that gives revenue officers like KRA issues, auditors a lot of issues, because there is a lot of really opaqueness in that system, transfer pricing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, also in terms of globalization, we have the issue of what here? The issue of transnational audits. Is there anybody, somebody try this out? Could you kindly tell me what a transnational audit is? What is a transnational audit? What is a transnational audit? Is there somebody who can try something there? What's a transnational audit? Great, great, great. Audit across different countries? No, Martin, no. Victor, this is where, for example, a Kenyan company is listed in Uganda and investors use that audit to make decisions. Yes. Yes. I like Victor's illustration there, Victor's example there. This is where, for example, Kenya Airways, which is a Kenyan company that is listed in Uganda, which of course has an auditor. For example, could be having KPMG auditing Kenya Airways. And the KPMG's audit opinion will be relied upon by people even across border, across our country, beyond our country. People are in Uganda to make investment decisions, to make lending. And you can see here from what Mulinga is giving us, he's telling us transnational audit means an audit of financial statements which are or may be relied upon outside the audited entity's home jurisdiction for purpose of significant lending, investing, or regulatory decisions. I love that. Transnational. Transnational. Now, the audit opinion you give here in Kenya is going beyond Kenya. It's going to be used outside Kenya. It's going to be used outside Kenya. Non-Kenyans outside there are going to use this information that you have given as an auditor to lend to this particular company or to invest in this particular company. Very transnational, beyond transnational audit, beyond the audit opinion being used beyond your country of origin. And of course, for that audit opinion to be valid and be accepted widely, then they would want multinational audit firms to offer that opinion, to offer their opinion. So I would want us to look at one example here and try to see whether we can answer it. One example here. It's an emerging area, very common area. I hope you guys are able to see my screen. I hope you guys are able to see my screen from this book that you have, Dragon Group. There is a question that they have here where they want us to define transnational audit and explain the relevance of the term to the audit of the Dragon Group. So Dragon Group must be having what here? Multinational subsidiaries. Must be having subsidiaries in other countries, right? Right? Okay, it could be still in Kenya, for example, fully, but this company is listed in other stock exchanges, So there must be a situation where, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, your company basically, yes, it could be fully domiciled in Kenya, but at the end of the day, listed outside there. There must be many nations being involved. Discuss 2 features of a transnational audit that may contribute to a high level of audit risk in such an engagement. 4 marks. 4 marks. This is an emerging area. It's a big area. Allow me to read this Dragon Group question. Explain 4 reasons why a firm of auditors may decide not to seek re-election as an auditor. 4 reasons. You are Jennifer Meadows, a newly qualified audit supervisor in Unicorn and the company, a global firm of chartered certified accountants with offices in over 150 countries across the world. It's a big multinational auditing firm. Unicorn and the company has been invited to tender for the Dragon Group audit, including the audit of all subsidiaries. You work in a department within the firm which specializes in the audit of retail companies, and have just received the following email from Cameron Wells, a senior partner in the department. Jennifer, we are currently considering tendering for the audit of a new client called the Dragon Group. The Dragon Group is a large group of companies operating in the furniture retail trade. The group has expanded rapidly in the last 3 years by acquiring several subsidiaries each year. The management of the company, Dragon, has decided to put the audit of the group and all subsidiaries out to tender, as the current audit firm is not seeking re-election. The financial year end of the Dragon Group is 30th September 2009. I recently held a meeting with Edmund Jalousi, the group finance director, in which we discussed the current group structure, recent acquisitions, and the group's plans for future expansion. I made some notes from the meeting on the basis of which I would like you to prepare some briefing notes for me, which recommend and describe the principal matters to be included in the firm's tender documents to provide the audit service to the Dragon Group, and which evaluate the matters that should be considered before accepting the audit engagement in the event of us being successful in the tender. You'll need to collect my meeting notes from my secretary. Thanks, Cameron Wells. Meeting notes, Dragon Group, group structure. The parent company owns 20 subsidiaries, all of which are wholly owned. Half of the subsidiaries are located in this country and half overseas, outside there. Most of the subsidiary companies report under the same financial reporting framework as Dragon Limited, but several prepare financial statements using local accounting rules. Acquisitions during the year: 2 companies were purchased in March 2009, both located in this country. Mermaid Limited, a company which operates 20 furniture retail outlets. The audit opinion expressed by the incumbent auditors of the financial statements for the year ended 30th September 2008 was modified by a material misstatement in relation to non-disclosure of a contingent liability. The contingent liability relates to a court case which is still ongoing. Minata Limited, a large company with operations and distribution and warehousing. This represents a diversification away from retail, and it is hoped that the Dragon Group will benefit from significant economies of scale as a result of the acquisition. Other matters: the acquisitive strategy of the group over the last few years has led to significant growth. Group revenue has increased by 25% in the last year. That's too big. And it's predicted to increase by a further 35% in the next 4 years as the acquisition of more subsidiaries is planned. The Dragon Group has raised finance for the acquisitions in the past by becoming listed on the stock exchanges of 3 different countries. Now this is where transnational audit comes in. We are listed in different stock exchanges, and of course these companies use these stock exchanges to get finances, to fund, they sell their shares there, right? A new listing on a foreign stock exchange is planned for January 2010. For this reason, management would like the group audited completed by 31st December 2019. When you get these guys, of course, telling you that they would want you to hurry up, as an auditor, you need to say no. You need to say no, because that time rush may not really give you adequate evidence that you would need to form an opinion. That is their business. If they would want, in this case here, they would want this listing to be done on this particular date, and I feel that I can't deliver, I would rather decline that appointment, right? So they want us to respond to Cameron Wells' email, like that 17 marks. I don't want to do that now. I wanted us to look at this, define transnational audit, and somebody had already defined it, so mine is to read the answer for you. Transnational audit: A transnational audit means an audit of financial statements which are or may be relied upon outside the audited entity's home jurisdiction for purposes of significant lending, investment, or regulatory decisions. This will include the Dragon Group because it is listed on the stock exchange and also because it is listed on the stock exchanges of several different countries and is therefore bound by regulations emanating from more than one national jurisdiction. The fact that the group contains many overseas subsidiaries means that their accounts are likely to be relied upon both home and abroad, and so are transnational in nature. Regulation and oversight of auditors differs from country to country. In some countries, audits are, I think this is a different question, audits are self-regulated. Like in Kenya, audit is a self-regulated activity. We regulate ourselves through ISPAC. All of us are members of Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and as auditors, we have set up a procedure of regulating ourselves. The government doesn't interfere, right? Whereas another legislative approach is used in some countries like the US, the government interferes. There is a risk that auditors of transnational groups may not be sufficiently aware of the requirements in all of the relevant countries. You'll just give an opinion and then you'll be taken to court, right? If, for example, that opinion is relied upon by people who are outside there and there are new regulations there and you're not aware of them. Differences in auditing standards from country to country, although international standards on auditing are now in operation in many countries, these standards are frequently modified by individual countries. Moreover, not all countries have adopted the standards. There is a risk that auditors may not have the required understanding of the relevant auditing standards in each country. Variability in audit quality in different countries, it may be the case that the quality of auditing required may differ from relevant countries, between relevant countries. There is a risk either that the auditor does not perform an audit that is up to the required standard in some countries, or that the audits performed on some overseas subsidiaries are not up to the standard required to express an opinion on the group financial statements. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, what could be excellent to us here as audit quality may be useless in terms of what here the UK standards. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, this explanation gives you just a high level of what a transnational audit is. My idea is not to have you guys cramming. It's basically to have a high level understanding that can help you write something in an exam. So I don't know whether you guys have been able to pick something out of this explanation, however small. Are we somewhere? So when you're talking of transnational audit, always see that your opinion is beyond your country. Transnational, trans on the move is beyond your country. That opinion would be relied by many people outside there to be able to make investment decisions, lend to this company, etc., etc. And the challenges there will be the standards between the countries are not the same, regulations are not the same, even the qualities may not be taken the same way. You'll issue a standard, you'll issue an opinion, and then somebody else there says that farm is a Kenyan farm, useless farm. At least you have an understanding. Thank you so much. Now, the other thing that I would want us to talk about this morning, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Have you guys ever heard about integrated reports? And what is the role of the auditors in these reports? What is an integrated report? What is an IR? Remember, initially, we used to just audit financial statements alone. But the current trend nowadays, people would want you to look at the entire annual reports, chairman statements, CEO statements, and check whether there is any contradictions. You know, the chairman may be saying that the profit is growing by 10%. And yet financial statements on the other side, ladies and gentlemen, are saying different things. So what are integrated reports, first of all? Let's start from there. Yeah, somebody in this case here has mentioned there, reporting beyond numbers. Thank you very much. Reporting beyond numbers. We have to go beyond the financial statements and give the company strategy, right? Give a statement on people. Give our business model outside, give all our secrets outside there, really, right? So according to David Cashero, it's all about the 3 Ps, reporting in terms of people, performance, and planet. The environment, yes. So Mulinga says an integrated report is a concise communication about how a company's strategy, governance, performance, and the prospects lead to creation of value. Great. Lead to creation of value. Integrated report is a concise communication about how a company's strategy, governance, performance lead to creation of value. Can we say consolidated report? No. It's just the same as consolidated. Okay, consolidated comes from the word putting together, right? Putting together. So remember, we are putting together 3 things. People, we have in this case here, profits, which are the financial statements. We have the planet. We are putting together what we call the ESG, environment, social, and governance, and the financial statements together. So in Amesi, can we, including, yes, there must be an environmental report. When we are talking about integrated report, there must be an environmental report. Besides the reporting of financial statements, we must also report, ladies and gentlemen, on the environment, social, that is people, governance, who is the chairman, etc. Thank you so much. Then what is the role now of the auditor in terms of integrated reports? I like what Alfred is saying there. It's a cross-functional report that supports all stakeholders in the reporting process. I really love this. The integrated reporting is going beyond the greedy perspective. Remember, the financial statements, profitability, you're only looking at one stakeholder, who is the shareholder. It's a greedy perspective. So integrated reports wants us to look at the bigger picture so that this company can be sustainable in the long term. Who are the stakeholders? Etc. So we have, for example, our close neighbors. Do we have any CSR for them? Right? We have our staff here, employees. Are we paying them adequately? Very important. Great. So the thing you haven't told me is the role of the auditor in integrated reports. I would want to hear this from you, the role of the auditor in integrated reports. The role of the auditor in integrated reports. When you realize that they have given you an integrated report, what are we supposed, ladies and gentlemen, to think about? I would rather look for a question as I wait for you guys to type in something. As I wait for you guys to type something, I can get a relevant question here. Okay. So I can see points here. Okay. Great. I can see what Viola is saying. But even these other things that are being stated there, right? Do they conform in this case here with standards? Conformity with standards. Remember what, for example, the NEMA standards, National Environmental Management Accounting Management Authority, National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA. It has got its own standards. So if these guys have provided things to do with the pollution there, right? In this case here, are those things in line with the NEMA standards? If it's pollution, they are saying, for example, they are emitting, like, say, 30%, whatever carbon dioxide. Are those emissions are giving within the guidelines of NEMA, right? Obadiah, providing assurance on data integrity, reviewing key risks and opportunities, and evaluating adequacy of governance and risk management controls. Hamisi says connecting financial report and what might have contributed to the results, especially during the KPIs presentations, right? Compliance with regulatory frameworks. Yes, I love this. Compliance with the regulatory frameworks, e.g. the Global Reporting Initiative. The Global Reporting Initiative. Provide assurance on data integrity and also reviewing key risks and opportunities. All right. Now I would want us to look at something here. Integrated. Okay. C, 50C. Yeah. Go to 50C. Great. Here we are. (50C). So you have just received the following email from the audit engagement partner on the Bluebell audit. To audit manager from audit partner regarding Bluebell Limited. Hello, I have a meeting with Daisy Roceptol tomorrow, for which I need you to prepare some briefing notes. Please prepare notes that recommend 8 KPIs which could be used to monitor Bluebell's limited social and environmental performance, and outline the nature of evidence that should be available to provide assurance on the accuracy of the KPIs recommended. So remember, it is 8 KPIs on what year somebody social and environmental what year performance, which are social and environmental. These are key components of the integrated reports. Are you able to give me anything, any KPI on this area? Let us just try to see whether students will be able to get this correct before we look at the answer. 8 KPIs which could be used to monitor Bluebell's limited social and environmental performance. Is there somebody who can give us something on this? So I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes. Try to think around this. We forgot that. So the KPIs, I am repeating here very fast from what I've been given by my students as per the balance scorecard in terms of people, the people stakeholders there. Of course, you are able to see things like customer satisfaction. I'll be able to measure that. I can easily get customer feedback forms and they return them. We see really how are our customers satisfied. We have employee satisfaction. I can easily get that through, again, feedbacks. Labor turnover, you can measure, right? We can measure this. We can measure this as a serious KPI, right? And then we have, ladies and gentlemen, from on the context of, no, before I go to that, still people, a good student here gave us a very good point here about percentage of employees that we have from minority communities, communities of disadvantaged people here like the disabled, etc. Very important, yes. Very important, yes. And then now we go straight away to metrics, KPI metrics on environmental matters. Environmental matters, we've been given very good points here. The only thing you guys forgot there is about the 3 R's of the environment, the 3 R's of environmental matters. 3 R's, do you know them? Refuse, reuse. Do you know those things? The 3 R's. The 3 R's. Recycle, yes, recycle. So we want a KPI on recycling, very important. Like now, percentage of waste recycled at the hotel, right? Amount spent on environmentally friendly products, such as energy efficient light bulbs or rubbish bins with separate sections for recycling in all rooms. That any rubbish that you think should be recycled, there should be a different, right, bin. Rubbish bin. Percentage change in utilities usage since prior year. Supplier bills for gas, water, and electricity to compare the cost and volume supplied versus the previous year. Very, very important, ladies and gentlemen, these utilities like electricity. Companies that are environmentally friendly should always endeavor to reduce their kilowatts, the number of kilowatts you use every year. And they'll take pride in this. Look at, for example, last year's financial statements of Stanchart. Stanchart globally, they have gone green. They've gone green. Even like now here, they build a very good building in at Westlands, right? Green. Where in this case, they don't have electricity at all. Everything, ladies and gentlemen, is all about what here, the solar, right? So they are taking pride in that and saying, hey, we've cut our electricity by a whole 70-something%. Globally, you can imagine, right? So if you are able to reduce such kind of bad energy, then you're good to the environment, right? So percentage of sustainable or recycled materials used in building new hotels or when undertaking what you refer, refurbishment. So we have for the social here, employees, percentage female employees, number of customer accidents at the hotel, customer satisfaction scores, number of customer complaints. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to believe that you have gotten some high level. It's about a high level understanding of these things. So you're talking of emerging issues, at least there you have an idea and you can write something there. So if I go back to my handout, yes. We have something to do with remote auditing. Really, we have explained this quite well. A remote audit, also known as virtual audit, is a method of conducting an audit remotely using electronic methods such as video conferencing, email, and telephone to obtain audit evidence, just like you would do on an on-site audit. This is something we want you to go and read. We've discussed about remote auditing. Then we have this is an emerging issue, big issue, data protection. Now, ladies and gentlemen, If, for instance, today you are to go to a bank, this bank, when you are opening an account, they would want a lot of information about you. They'll ask you, for example, to put in a residence. Where do you stay? You tell them that, for example, I stay at this place. They would even want to know the apartment number, right? The road, right? They would want to know all your names. They would want to know who your father is or who your next of kin is. If it's your wife, they would want to know her mobile number, ID number. They would want to know, for example, her email address, right? You end up giving so much in terms of what your confidential information. So remember, right now we have what we call a Data Protection Act. It was in Europe many, many years ago. Now from this month, beginning of this month, you can see the people who are making lines to go and pay the license, which goes for about 4,000 Kenya shillings annual, right? In terms of data protection, we have a data protection agency, right? So if you have collected that kind of information from the members of the public, what if fraudsters were to go and get access to that data and then they start, in this case here, attacking your clients? What safeguards, what security measures have you put in place to ensure that this data that you have is really highly protected, right? This is an area, ladies and gentlemen, that I suspect that very soon there will be very many issues. Even as RCM college, online college, we are already in a process of registering with Data Protection Agency, because, you know, how do we get our students? We really mind for student numbers. Yeah, we write, for example, if it's on Facebook, would you want to attend a free of charge class AFM today? If you want to do that, enter here. So they come to WhatsApp. But you see, by the fact that these guys have come to our WhatsApp, it doesn't give us a right to start now sending them, you know, you send messages. You must have received messages from us, SMSs. That's so wrong. That is an infringement on your privacy, right? We need, at least in this case here, once you come to a WhatsApp, you must give us consent that if you want to advertise, reach out to you. We will get consent from you that, hey guys, I don't have a problem so long as you don't spam my SMS inbox by sending so many messages, right? So that concept of you getting consent from people whose information you have to be reaching out to them is going to be a big thing. Currently, as we speak, there are people you must be reading on the daily newspapers. There are people who have already launched cases in court that their privacy has been infringed. You know, also Kenyans, we are great people. We are funny people. There are people, I don't know whether they are very idle. There are people who just look for the slightest opportunity. And when you see the amounts they're claiming, like from these big companies, that we got this from Safaricom, now I want to be paid 50 million for infringement into my privacy. Kenyans, we are great people, right? So data protection is a big thing. So then what is the role of an auditor in terms of trying to safeguard companies from being sued on grounds of data protection? So for me, of course, it's all about controls, right? I would want to know whether the employees have been trained on this Data Protection Act. Is there anybody here who works for a company that has been able to adhere to this Data Protection Act rules? Anybody who is working with any company that has been able to adhere to the Data Protection Act requirements? Is there anybody who works for such as a firm? I'll not ask you a question. I just want to know. I just want to know whether there is anybody who has that experience of working with a company that has been able to adhere to the Data Protection Act. Is a big thing right now in Kenya. It's a big thing right now in Kenya. It seems nobody. So then as an auditor, I would want to know whether, number one, your employees have been trained. Are they people who come and, for example, if it's an M-Pesa shop, when you're registering somebody's SIM card, you've taken all the information and then you leave that book just like that. No, you'll have issues, ladies and gentlemen. You'll have issues for sure in future. Somebody will come to claim and say that my phone number was gotten by these cybercrime people from this particular lady who registered me for M-Pesa services, and you'll get yourself into trouble. So I'd want to know whether all employees really are conversant with these matters. I would want to know what safeguards in this case here do you have, right? Again, is this data, on this data that you are collecting, right? Do you have any consent procedures available if you'd want to give out some information about, for example, here we are, we opened a bank account for this mzee. This mzee has died. There is nobody who is coming to collect this money from this account. And now we are supposed to surrender these to the agency that deals with what here, next of kin, etc. So before I give this information, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed, for example, to go on the Gazette? I mean, there must be something that we have to do. So we want those procedures really. So I'll have to do a lot of inquiries here, right? So Irene, yes, our customers have to consent when opening accounts. We have been trained. All our forms have data protection clause. You can see this. Call next of kin, right? But Gordon, before you call this next of kin, look at what Irene said. There must be this data protection clause. There must be the consent. You know, you may call the next of kin thinking that this guy died. This guy died and maybe he never died. Maybe they're just people, fraudsters who came to the bank, right? There must be some consent that this person gave. Giving you a name and something that this is my next of kin doesn't give you a right to start calling people, right? Things change. Maybe she gave you, or rather this man gave you this next of kin as a lady who used to be a wife by then. Now, in this case, this wife, for example, has maybe divorced with this guy and doesn't want to hear anything about this guy. And here you are calling the lady. So our beneficiaries have to sign consent forms before we can share their photos in our reports. Look at that. Indemnity, terms and conditions, signing, etc. So Data Protection Act, it is something, ladies and gentlemen, I would want you to appreciate from the word go, that when we get confidential data, about, in this case here, you as our students, we really have to protect this data so that it doesn't get into fraudsters' hands because of our negligence on our side as a college. Right now, we're getting into very, very funny, serious fraud situations. So data protection is a big thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it about data protection. Remember, it's a high level. So long as you have a high level understanding, you'll be able to get at least something to write. What I don't want you is a situation you should be in where in an exam you're only gazing at the ceiling up there, right? They ask about data protection, you know nothing about it. Now you're looking at just the ceiling and trying to look at those neighbors of yours who are writing. You become envious a little bit. What is this guy writing? And I'm not writing anything at all. It's quite funny. I don't want you to be in that kind of shoes. Great. I want you to be the champions there. Now, this is the last thing that I look at for today, social engineering. Social engineering, again, is another area, ladies and gentlemen. Social engineering is another area which is upcoming, especially for bank employees. They have to be taught quite a lot about this social engineering. Social engineering. What is social engineering? Social engineering, ladies and gentlemen, is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. You guys must have dealt with this social engineering quite a lot. These guys from Committee, Maximum Prison, you even saw some news on them. They are very good in social engineering. Somebody calls you, ama anakuandikia message anakuambia, please, I've sent money to your M-Pesa by mistake. Right? Send to this number, right? You know, they're trying to engineer your behavior. They're trying, in this case here, to deceive you. And in most cases, regardless of how qualified academically you are, all of us have fallen victim into these people because they're bright. They're miles ahead of us. I had a friend of mine. This friend, in this case here, got a call from a Mzungu. So Mzungu akamwambia, I'm coming to Kenya and I'll be bringing this and this and this and this and this and this. Na akamtumia something, akamwambia hii, go to the hub shield, get something there. I've sent you something like 10,000 Kenya shillings. So this friend of mine akaona, hey, hii nimeangukia sana, right? Kumbe ameshachunguza yeye, akajua mtu anafanya kazi nzuri, etc, he can be able to give this much. Ashachunguza yeye kabisa, right? So jamaa akaendelea, akamwambia sasa nimefika wapi? Nishafika airport, right? etc story. Anakuja anamwambia sasa, ongea na hawa polisi. Polisi anamwambia, this guy has been involved in this and this and this, and you can see this guy has got so many things, and he's telling us that these things are for you. What you do, you send us 100,000, tumwachilie, ama pata potea, iye tumchukue na tumuue, ama vitu ipotee. Jamaa na panic, na alikuwa shakula 10,000. Anaenda na kopa pesa, anatuma 100,000 kora wakora. That is the end of that mzungu. So at the end of the day, called Mozilla reminds me of the lady teacher called by a mzungu called Mozilla Firefox. It's called, so they play around with your mind. They play around with your mind. So even you Lydian, ukicheck up as I'm so sure, one day utagongwa. One day utagongwa. One day utagongwa. It's called social engineering. Social engineering. And it is all over. Kama ukienda kutoa pesa kwa ATM, especially these banks ambazo ziko na cash limits kubwa, you must be very much aware of this social engineering, right? Unatokelezea tu hivi kwa ATM, mtu anakuja kukuletea mkono na bidii sana, akismile kabisa. You must be aware, it's social engineering. It's social engineering. Especially ukitoa pesa masaa za jioni. Masaa za jioni kama saa 12 saa 1. The mzungu lady mwenye amegonga ng'ombe, unaona kama huyo sasa Narok is the most. Your machine. It's called social engineering, right? Na hao wengine wa safari wanapiga simu na kuambia tunataka namna hii, nini. It's being socially engineered in a way that you will be able to give your M-Pesa PIN, etc, and then they take everything from you. Akisa uzuri siku hizi watu wanaweza kuwa werevu in terms of social engineering. Hata mama huko nyumbani, unakuta mwingine kama clip ulikuwa umeona, mtu amepiga simu anamwambia nipatie M-Pesa whatever, anamwambia pin yangu ni mkisia, anasema pin yangu mimi siwezi kukupatia. And that is why, as for example, banks, you must train your people on this social warfare engineering tactics. They should not, in this case here, for example, ladies and gentlemen, be just punching anything they see. No. Kama saizi ukienda kwa Facebook, right? Unaona hapo kitu kidogo tu, unaona sijui 99 and others tagged. Right? It's social engineering, because what those guys are doing, they want to collect as much information from people outside here. They know that people would want to see these pornographic things. So when you press like this, it goes to all those 99 friends of yours. So kuna wakora kwa ajali kuangalia mtu anafanya kazi wapi, huyo anafanya nini. So wanaenda kwa wao kama ni kitu serious. But at the end of the day, it's social warfare. They're using things that people would want to see. You touch on it, it goes out there. They're collecting information. So right now, those guys must have gotten a lot of information from people. Social engineering. So the auditor, my role basically is to see whether employees are really trained on this social engineering, and I must also try to get into this thing of even trying to con, right? In quotes, right? I'll try to see whether systems are really tough or not. etc. Great.